Alrighty, let's jump in. So today what we're going to be talking about in particular is your pricing strategy. And when we talk about your pricing strategy, we don't just mean the number on the actual page that you might be charging or the number in the contract or the DocuSign or however you actually deliver your particular quote. But what we're specifically talking about is your overall strategy around your packaging, your positioning, your customers that you're targeting, the actual number on the page, and kind of everything in between. And the reason that this is so important, as we'll talk about in a bit, is mainly around the fact that a lot of times we don't put a lot of time into our pricing. And what inevitably that does is it actually makes us actually leave a lot of cash on the table. We're going to find out just how little people spend on their pricing in a bit and the implication of that using a lot of fun data today. But we're going to do this in three acts here. The first part that we're going to go through here is really just talking about how growth has changed pretty dramatically. We're not living in a world like 2005 where, you know, pennies a click advertising existed, or if you wrote a blog post, you were just amazing. Now we're living in a very dense world, particularly when it comes to growth. And that affects really where our growth is going to come from, particularly when it comes to pricing. Next, we're going to talk about how a lot of what we have done in reaction to this market just isn't working as much any further, and how we need to kind of change how we approach this market. And then finally, we're going to get to the good foundation of how you can kind of take advantage of these market changes through getting your pricing right. And so we're going to go deep on a number of areas. We're going to go broad on a few others. If you have any of those questions, make sure you put those in the chat pane or in the Q&A. But don't be afraid, because we want to make sure that you get as much out of this presentation, much out of this webinar as you can. The one thing I'll say is that make sure you focus on the framework, not all the details. We are going to share all the details afterwards. There's probably going to be a couple of supplemental materials that I'll reference that we'll share as well. But it's one of those things where if you focus on the framework, we found that that's the most successful to get the most out of the next 45 minutes that we'll be spending with one another.